The espresso machine hissed like an angry serpent, steam scalding my wrist as I pulled another shot for the endless line of morning customers. The burn barely registered anymore. After 3 years working at Cafe Vittoria in Brooklyn's Little Italy, my skin had grown thick with calluses and old scars, my tolerance for pain higher than I'd ever imagined possible. I wiped down the counter with mechanical precision, the scent of burnt coffee grounds and fresh cannoli mingling in the air. Outside the cafe's tall windows, November rain pelted the cobblestone street, turning the world into a watercolor of grays and browns. Inside, the warmth was suffocating, the noise overwhelming. But it was mine. This small life I'd built, this careful anonymity, it was safe. "Laura, table 7 needs attention," Angela called from behind the pastry case, her thick Brooklyn accent cutting through the espresso machine's roar. "And the gentleman at the corner booth asked for you specifically." My hands stilled on the cloth. Nobody asked for me specifically. I kept my head down, worked my shifts, went home to my tiny apartment in Sunset Park, where I could hear my neighbors arguing through paper-thin walls. I was invisible here, deliberately so. That was the point. "Did he give a name?" I asked, already knowing the answer would change everything. Angela shrugged, adjusting her hairnet. "Just said to send over the girl with the dark hair and green eyes. Said he'd know you when he saw you." The cloth slipped from my fingers, landing in a puddle of spilled milk. 3 years. 3 years of hiding, of rebuilding, of protecting the most precious thing I'd ever created. And somehow, impossibly, he'd found me. My hand moved instinctively to my apron pocket where my phone rested, where a single photo lived that I looked at 100 times a day. Marco. My beautiful boy with his father's dark curls and my green eyes, safe with Mrs. Chen in the apartment upstairs while I worked the morning shift. Marco, who would turn 3 next month, who had no idea his father was one of the most dangerous men on the East Coast. "Laura?" Angela's voice held concern now. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Maybe I had. Or maybe the ghost had finally caught up with me. I forced my breathing to steady, smoothed down my black apron with trembling hands, and picked up my order pad. The corner booth was positioned in the back of the cafe, partially obscured by a decorative column and potted ficus trees. Privacy. Of course he'd chosen privacy. As I approached, my feet moving of their own accord, while my mind screamed at me to run, I caught my first glimpse of him in 3 years. Riccardo Bellucci sat with his back to the wall, a position I remembered him always choosing. Never vulnerable, never exposed. His dark hair was shorter than I remembered, styled with expensive product that caught the cafe's warm lighting. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. The crisp white shirt beneath it opened at the collar. No tie. Casual elegance for a man who commanded respect through presence alone. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath. Deep brown, almost black in the dim light. They lifted from the menu he'd been studying and locked onto mine with an intensity that sent heat flooding through my body, despite every logical reason to feel only fear. Recognition flared in those dark depths. Not surprise. He'd known I was here. Known I worked at this cafe. Known exactly where to find me when he decided the time was right. "Bella," he said, my old nickname like honey and poison on his tongue. "It's been a long time." My fingers clenched around the order pad. "Mr. Bellucci, what can I get you?" A smile curved his lips, dangerous and knowing. "Still running, I see. Still playing games." "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just here to take your order." He leaned back in the booth, his expensive suit jacket pulling tight across broad shoulders I remembered too well. The way they'd felt beneath my hands, the warmth of his skin, the controlled power in every movement. That one night, that single, catastrophic night that had changed everything. "Cappuccino," he said smoothly, "and a moment of your time." I promise I don't bite. Not unless you ask nicely." The flirtation in his voice made my skin prickle. This wasn't happening. Not here, not now, not when I'd been so careful. "I'm working," I said, proud of how steady my voice remained. "I can bring you the cappuccino, but I can't—" "Your shift ends at 2, he interrupted. "I've been watching." The admission sent ice through my veins. Watching. For how long? How much did he know? Did he know about Marco? God, please don't let him know about Marco. "That's—" I struggled to find words that wouldn't reveal my panic. "That's inappropriate, Mr. Bellucci." "Ricardo?" he corrected, his voice dropping lower. "You used to call me Ricardo, or don't you remember?" I remembered. God help me. I remembered everything. The charity gala where I'd been serving champagne, barely 20 years old and working 3 jobs to pay for my mother's medical bills. The way he'd looked at me across that glittering ballroom like I was the only person in the room who mattered. The conversation that had lasted until my shift ended. The invitation to dinner that had turned into hours of talking, laughing, feeling seen for the first time in my life. And then his hotel room, his hands, his mouth. The way he'd made me feel like I was precious, worshipped, chosen. One perfect night before reality crashed back, and I'd realized who he really was, what he really did. Before I'd fled at dawn, unable to reconcile the man who'd touched me with such tenderness with the criminal empire I'd learned bore his name. Before I'd discovered I was pregnant. "I'll get your cappuccino," I said, turning away before he could see the tears threatening. His hand shot out, catching my wrist. Not painful, never painful, but absolutely immovable. His thumb found my pulse point, pressing gently. Could he feel how my heart raced? Could he sense the terror and longing warring in my blood? "We need to talk, Laura. You know we do. You can't run forever." "I'm not running," I whispered, pulling my hand free. "I'm just living my life." "Alone?" His eyes searched mine. "No one significant? No attachments?" The question was too pointed, too specific. He was fishing. He didn't know. Not yet. But he suspected something. "That's none of your business." "Everything about you is my business." He said it simply, as though stating an obvious fact. "It always has been. From the moment you walked into that ballroom and I saw you, you became mine." "I was never yours," I said, more to convince myself than him. "One night doesn't make me yours." His smile was predatory. "Then why did you disappear? Why did you run if that one night meant nothing?" "Because it meant everything. Because I knew, the moment I learned you were Ricardo Bellucci, head of the Bellucci crime family, that staying would destroy me. That loving you would mean giving up every principle I'd ever held. That bringing a child into your world would be the cruelest thing I could ever do. But I couldn't say any of that." "Cappuccino," I repeated. Nothing else. I walked away on legs that barely supported me, feeling his eyes on my back the entire way. At the espresso machine, Angela materialized beside me. "Who is he?" she whispered. "He's been sitting there for an hour just watching you work. It's kind of romantic, but also kind of creepy." "Old acquaintance," I managed, pulling the espresso shot with shaking hands. "Nothing important." "Honey, men who look like that and watch women like he's watching you are never nothing important. He looks like he wants to either devour you or lock you in a tower. Maybe both. Both, probably. That had always been Ricardo's way. Possession and protection so intertwined they became indistinguishable. I made the cappuccino with more care than I'd given any drink in 3 years, creating a perfect rosetta in the foam. Stupid, maybe, but old habits died hard. I'd learned to make coffee art during the 2 weeks after our night together, when I'd still believed maybe somehow we could work. Before Google had educated me on exactly who Ricardo Bellucci was, and what his family did. When I returned to his table, he was on his phone, speaking rapid Italian in a low voice that carried undertones of command. He looked up as I approached, ending the call with a single word. Later. I set down the cappuccino. His eyes went immediately to the rosetta, and something flickered in their dark depths. Memory, maybe. Recognition that I'd remembered his preferences after all this time. Beautiful, he murmured, but he wasn't looking at the coffee. You always had such delicate hands, such careful attention to detail. Is there anything else you need? Yes. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, setting it on the table between us. Dinner, tonight. We have much to discuss. I can't. 8 o'clock. I'll send a car. I said I can't, I repeated more firmly. I have obligations. His eyes sharpened. What kind of obligations? God, I was terrible at this. Terrible at lying to a man who'd built an empire on reading people's secrets. Personal ones. And even if I didn't, I wouldn't have dinner with you, Ricardo. What we had was 3 years ago. It's over. Is it? He stood, and I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. He was taller than I remembered. Broader, the power he emanated more refined and dangerous. Because from where I'm standing, Bella, it feels very much unfinished. He pulled out his wallet, extracting a $100 bill and placing it on the table beside the untouched cappuccino. For the coffee and your time, keep the change. I don't want your money. No? He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne. Cedar and bergamot, expensive and intoxicating. The same scent that still haunted my dreams. What do you want, Laura? Tell me and it's yours. To be left alone. To keep my son safe. To stop feeling this pull toward you that never died, no matter how much I tried to kill it. To finish my shift in peace, I said instead. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. Finish your shift. But this conversation isn't over. I didn't find you after 3 years just to let you slip away again. I didn't realize I was lost. You weren't. You were hiding. There's a difference. He picked up the business card, taking my hand and pressing it into my palm. His fingers lingered, warm and strong and so achingly familiar. Call me when you're ready to stop running. Because you will be, Laura. Soon. He left then, moving through the cafe with the confident grace of a man who'd never been denied anything he truly wanted. Customers' eyes followed him, sensing the power even if they couldn't name it. The door chimed as he exited into the November rain, and only then did I realize I'd been holding my breath. My hands shook as I cleared his table. The cappuccino sat untouched, the rosetta already beginning to dissolve. The $100 bill felt like blood money in my pocket. And the business card. Simple, elegant, with just his name and a phone number, burned against my palm like a brand. Angela appeared at my elbow. So? What did Mr. Tall, dark, and dangerous want? To catch up on old times. Honey, men like that don't do catch up on old times. They do. I'm going to turn your life upside down, and you're going to like it. She had no idea how right she was. The rest of my shift passed in a blur of anxiety. I kept expecting Ricardo to return, or worse, for one of his men to appear. By the time 2 o'clock came, my nerves were stretched so thin I jumped at every sound. I changed out of my work clothes in the cafe's tiny bathroom, pulling on jeans and a worn sweater. My reflection in the mirror showed a woman who looked older than her 23 years, dark circles under green eyes, my brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry, except for the simple cross necklace my mother had given me before she died. I looked nothing like the girl Ricardo had met 3 years ago. That Laura had been hopeful, naive, still believing the world could be fair if you just worked hard enough. This Laura knew better. This Laura had learned to survive, to hide, to protect what mattered most. This Laura had a son to think about. I hurried out the staff entrance, keeping my head down as I navigated the familiar streets toward my apartment. Mrs. Chen would have Marco until 4, giving me time to grab groceries and maybe, if I was lucky, breathe for 10 minutes without panic clawing at my throat. But as I turned onto my block, I saw it. The black SUV with tinted windows, parked directly in front of my building. Not a delivery truck, not a rideshare. The kind of vehicle men like Riccardo Bellucci used when they wanted to send a message. He knew where I lived. Of course he did. He'd probably known for weeks. Months, maybe. Watching. Waiting. Choosing his moment to resurface in my life with calculated precision. I considered turning around, walking away. But where would I go? And Marco was upstairs, probably playing with Mrs. Chen's cat, completely unaware his entire world was about to change. The SUV's door opened as I approached. A man stepped out, tall and solid in a dark suit, his face impassive. I recognized him immediately. Enzo, Riccardo's right hand, the man who'd been by his side the night we'd met. "Miss Moretti," he said, using my mother's maiden name, the one I'd taken after fleeing Riccardo. "Mr. Bellucci requests your presence." "Tell Mr. Bellucci I have other plans." "I'm afraid that's not a request. Miss, please." He gestured to the open door. My heart hammered. "And if I refuse?" Enzo's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened. "He said you'd ask that. He said to tell you he just wants to talk. No threats, no force, just a conversation. 1 hour, and then I'll bring you back." 1 hour. His word. Riccardo's word. 3 years ago, I'd have believed it without question. Now, I knew better than to trust promises from men who built empires on violence and fear. But I also knew refusing would only delay the inevitable. If Riccardo wanted to talk to me, he'd find a way. Better to face it now, on semi-neutral ground, than risk him showing up at my door when Marco was home. 1 hour, I agreed, climbing into the SUV before I could change my mind. The interior smelled of leather and danger. Enzo closed the door, sealing me inside, and took his place in the driver's seat. We pulled away from the curb smoothly, heading toward Manhattan. I stared out the window, watching my neighborhood disappear, and wondered if I was making the biggest mistake of my life, or if I'd already made it 3 years ago, when I'd looked into Riccardo Bellucci's dark eyes and decided, just for one night, to forget every rational thought and follow my heart instead. The SUV glided through Manhattan traffic with the ease of a vehicle that never had to wait, never had to yield. Police cars moved aside. Taxis gave way. Even pedestrians seemed to sense something in the tinted windows that made them step back from the curb. Power. Riccardo Bellucci's power, silent and absolute, paving the way even when he wasn't physically present. We drove for 20 minutes, heading uptown toward neighborhoods where apartments cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Finally, we pulled up to a building on the Upper East Side, all glass and steel and old money. A doorman rushed forward with an umbrella, though the rain had stopped. "Miss," Enzo said, opening my door. "Mr. Bellucci is waiting in the penthouse." Of course he was. Of course Riccardo owned a penthouse in one of Manhattan's most exclusive buildings. What had I expected? That 3 years had somehow diminished his empire, softened his edges, made him less of what he'd always been. The elevator required a keycard that Enzo provided. As the doors closed and we ascended, I caught my reflection in the polished brass. Pale face, anxious eyes, cheap clothes that marked me as distinctly out of place in this world of wealth and privilege. I looked like exactly what I was. A single mother who worked for tips, trying desperately to stay invisible. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. I stepped out into a space that stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Central Park, the city spreading out below like a kingdom waiting to be conquered. The furniture was modern and minimal, all clean lines and expensive fabrics in shades of cream and charcoal. Original artwork lined the walls, pieces I recognized from my brief art history classes in the community college I'd attended before my mother got sick. And standing by those massive windows, backlit by the late afternoon sun, was Ricardo. He'd removed his jacket, his white dress shirt now rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with lean muscle. A tumbler of amber liquid rested in his hand as he stared out at his city, his kingdom, his empire. "Laura," he said without turning, "thank you for coming. I didn't have much choice." Now he turned, and the afternoon light caught his face, highlighting the sharp angles of his jaw, the slight shadow of stubble that gave him an edge of danger even in this refined setting. His dark eyes found mine, and I felt that same pull, that same magnetic attraction that had doomed me 3 years ago. "You always have a choice," he said, though I'll admit I made the options rather limited. "Drink?" "No. You said 1 hour. I'm counting." A smile tugged at his lips. Still so fierce. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed that about you. Most people who enter this room can barely meet my eyes. Maybe they're smarter than me. Or maybe, he crossed to a sideboard, refilling his glass with measured precision. They haven't given me reason to see them as anything other than pawns. You were never a pawn, Bella. You were always so much more. The endearment sent unwanted warmth through me. I forced myself to remember what he was, what he did. The investigations I'd read about after our night together, the rumors of violence, of territory wars, of bodies that washed up in the East River when someone crossed the Bellucci family. "Why am I here, Ricardo?" He took a slow sip of his drink, watching me over the rim. "Because you disappeared. 3 years ago, you left my bed at dawn, and when I woke, you were gone. No note, no explanation, no trace. Do you have any idea what that did to me?" "I'm sure you recovered quickly enough." "Did I?" He set down his glass with careful precision. "You think I simply moved on? Found some other woman to fill the space you left? I think you're Ricardo Bellucci. You don't lack for options." "Options, yes. But there's only one Laura Moretti. Only one woman who looked at me that night like I was a man rather than a monster. Only one woman whose absence has haunted me every day since." My heart hammered against my ribs. This was dangerous territory. "You barely knew me. One night was enough," he interrupted, his voice going hard. "Enough to know you were different. Enough to know I wanted more. Enough that when you disappeared, I tore this city apart looking for you." The admission sent ice through my veins. "You looked for me?" "Of course I looked for you. I had every resource at my disposal searching. Private investigators, police contacts, even federal databases. Laura Carter simply vanished after that night. Because I'd become Laura Moretti, using my mother's maiden name. Because I'd deliberately erased every trace of my old identity, terrified of exactly this moment. "How did you find me?" I whispered. He moved closer, each step deliberate, predatory. "A stroke of luck, actually. One of my associates mentioned a new cafe in Brooklyn, said they made the best cappuccino in the city. When I went to investigate the competition, imagine my surprise when I saw you through the window. 3 years of searching, and there you were, making coffee art for tourists and businessmen, hiding in plain sight." "I wasn't hiding. I was living my life." "In Brooklyn? Working for minimum wage plus tips? You, who had a partial scholarship to NYU before your mother got sick? You, who dreamed of curating art in museums? Don't insult my intelligence, Laura. You were absolutely hiding." He was too close now, close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the faint scar along his jawline that I'd traced with my fingers that long ago night. Close enough that my body remembered his touch, even as my mind screamed warnings. From what? I asked, though we both knew the answer. From me. From this. He gestured between us. From the inevitability of what we started that night. We didn't start anything. It was one night of bad judgment. His hand came up, fingers grazing my cheek with devastating gentleness. I should have pulled away, should have maintained the distance that had kept me safe for 3 years. But I was frozen, caught between memory and present, between fear and longing. Bad judgment, he repeated softly. Is that what you tell yourself? That the best night of your life was a mistake? It was the best night of my life. That was the problem. That was why I'd run. Because I'd known even then that one night would never be enough, that I could fall completely and irrevocably in love with this dangerous man, and that loving him would destroy everything I believed in. The best night of my life was finding out I was pregnant, I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. His hand stilled on my face. The air in the room changed, charged with sudden tension. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. What did you say? Oh God, I'd said it. After 3 years of secrecy, of protection, of keeping Marco hidden from this world, I'd just blurted it out like some confession I'd been waiting to make. Nothing. I tried to backtrack. I didn't mean... You said pregnant. His fingers tightened slightly on my jaw, not painful, but immovable, forcing me to meet his eyes. You said finding out you were pregnant was the best night of your life. Are you telling me... He stopped, his chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. Are you telling me you have a child? I could lie. Should lie. But Riccardo Bellucci had built an empire on reading people, on sensing deception. And his eyes, those dark, intense eyes, saw everything. Yes, I whispered. How old? That's not... How old, Laura? Not a question, a demand. Almost 3. The calculation was instant. I watched it happen, watched him count backward to that night 3 years and 9 months ago, watched understanding dawn, followed by something fierce and possessive and absolutely terrifying. Mine, he said. Not a question, a statement of fact. No, don't lie to me. His other hand came up, framing my face now, holding me captive with touch alone. I can see it in your eyes. You have my child. My son? Daughter? This is exactly why I left, I said, tears finally spilling over. This ownership, this assumption that everything connected to you belongs to you. You're carrying my child. That makes it my business. That makes it my right. Rights? I pushed against his chest, needing distance, needing air. You have no rights. I don't care who you are or what you control. That child is mine. Mine alone. He let me go, but only physically. His presence still surrounded me, overwhelming and inescapable. A son or daughter, Laura? Which is it? I should have kept silent. Should have protected Marco's identity for as long as possible. But the fight drained out of me. Exhaustion and fear and 3 years of carrying this secret alone finally breaking through my defenses. A son, I whispered. His name is Marco. Something shifted in Riccardo's face. The hardness fractured, revealing something raw beneath. Marco. You named him Marco. After my grandfather. My grandfather's name was Marco, he said softly. Marco Bellucci. He built this empire from nothing. Came to America with $10 and a dream. His eyes met mine. You gave our son the name of a man who built something that would last generations. I didn't know that. It was just fate, he finished. Everything about us has been fate, Bella. From the moment we met to this moment right now. You can run from it, deny it, hide from it, but you can't escape it. A phone buzzed, breaking the tension. Ricardo pulled it from his pocket, glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. I need to take this, he said, stepping away. Don't move. He spoke in rapid Italian, his tone controlled but with an undercurrent of steel. I caught fragments. Handled, immediately, no witnesses. The language of violence delivered in civilized tones. This was the reality of Riccardo Bellucci. Not the tender lover from 3 years ago, not the man who'd made me feel precious and seen, but a criminal who ordered people's fates with phone calls and cold precision. When he ended the call, he turned back to me with eyes that had gone flat. Dangerous. We have a problem. We don't have anything. My fiancé, he continued as though I hadn't spoken, has just learned about our meeting today. She's asking questions I'd prefer not to answer yet. The word fiancé hit me like a physical blow. You're engaged? A business arrangement, nothing more. Does she know that? His jaw tightened. It's complicated. I'm sure it is. I grabbed my purse, needing to leave before something broke inside me. Before I revealed just how much that single word had shattered what remained of my composure. I need to go. Mrs. Chen will be expecting me. Who's Mrs. Chen? My neighbor. She watches Marco while I work. No, Ricardo said simply. That arrangement ends today. I stared at him. Excuse me? My son will not be watched by some stranger while his mother works minimum wage jobs. I'll arrange proper childcare. A nanny with references, security clearances. You'll do nothing of the kind. Marco is my son, my responsibility. You don't get to just waltz back into my life after 3 years and start making demands. I'm not making demands. I'm stating facts. He moved toward me with that predatory grace. You've been raising my heir alone, in poverty, while I had no idea he existed. That ends now. I'll provide for both of you. An apartment, proper childcare, everything you need. I don't want your money. Too bad. You're getting it anyway, along with security. Security? You think news of my son won't spread? You think my enemies won't see him as an opportunity, a weakness to exploit? His voice went cold. Within hours of me confirming Marco's existence, there will be people plotting how to use him against me, how to hurt me through him, through you. The words sent fresh terror through me. This was what I'd feared. This was why I'd hidden Marco for 3 years. Not just from Ricardo, but from the dangerous world he inhabited. Then don't confirm his existence, I said desperately. Just leave us alone. Pretend you never found me. Impossible. He stood before me now, too close, his eyes boring into mine. I've spent 3 years searching for you, Laura. 3 years wondering what I did to make you run. Now I know you were protecting our son. I understand. I even respect it. But that time is over. Marco is a Bellucci, and Belluccis don't hide in Brooklyn apartments. They don't grow up without their father's protection. They don't get a choice? I interrupted. Just like I don't? Just like everything in your world is decided by power and control and what Riccardo Bellucci wants. Yes, he said simply. Because what I want in this case is what's best for our son. Safety, education, opportunities. A father who loves him. The last words undid me. You don't even know him. Then introduce us. Let me meet my son, Laura. Let me be part of his life. And if I refuse? His expression went cold. Then I'll get a court order. DNA test to prove paternity. Petition for custody rights. I have the best lawyers in the state. I have judges who owe me favors. I have resources you can't possibly match. We can do this the easy way, with you voluntarily introducing me to Marco. or the hard way, with legal battles that will destroy any peace you've built. Your choice. Tears stream down my face now, unchecked. You're threatening me. I'm promising you that one way or another, I will know my son. I will be part of his life. The only question is whether you fight me and lose everything, or work with me and gain the protection and resources of the Bellucci family. Some choice. It's more choice than you gave me. His voice softened slightly. You took my son from me. Laura. 3 years of his life I'll never get back. First words, first steps, first everything. You stole that from me. Now I'm taking back what's mine. The unfairness of the accusation burned. I was protecting him from this, from you, from a world where children are leverage and women are possessions, and love is just another word for control. Is that what you think? He caught my face again, forcing me to meet his eyes. That I see you as a possession. Don't you? For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then, slowly, he released me and stepped back. Enzo will drive you home, he said, his voice carefully neutral. But this conversation isn't over. I'll give you 24 hours to think about how you want this to proceed. After that, I'm meeting my son, with or without your blessing. Ricardo. 24 hours, Laura. Use them wisely. The elevator ride down felt like descending into hell. Enzo drove me back to Brooklyn in silence, his face impassive in the rearview mirror. When we pulled up to my building, I saw Mrs. Chen in the window, Marco on her hip, his dark curls backlit by the warm glow of her apartment. My son. My beautiful, innocent boy who knew nothing of mafia empires or dangerous men, or the father whose blood ran through his veins. Miss Moretti, Enzo said as I reached for the door handle. For what it's worth, I've known Mr. Bellucci for 15 years. I've never seen him like he was today. Finding out about your son, it changed something in him. Changed him how? Made him vulnerable. And Mr. Bellucci doesn't do vulnerable, which means he cares, really cares. That might count for something. Or it might make him more dangerous than ever. I climbed out of the SUV and watched it drive away, taking with it any illusion that my carefully constructed life could continue as it had been. Ricardo Bellucci had found me. He knew about Marco. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my narrow bed, staring at the ceiling while the sounds of the city filtered through my thin windows. Sirens, car horns, the couple next door arguing in Spanish. The symphony of Brooklyn at night, familiar and grounding. But tonight, it felt like the walls were closing in. In the other room, Marco slept peacefully in his toddler bed, his small chest rising and falling with the innocent rhythm of childhood. I'd checked on him 6 times since putting him down, each time memorizing his features as though Ricardo might steal him away in the night. Those dark curls so like his father's. The elegant bone structure already evident in his baby face. The way his small hand curled around his favorite stuffed bear. He looked so much like Ricardo it hurt. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Another message, the 5th one tonight. I knew without looking who it was. We need to talk about tomorrow. I want this to go smoothly for Marco's sake. I've arranged for a child psychologist to advise on the best approach. Answer me, Laura. I know you're awake. Please. That last one was what made me finally pick up the phone. Ricardo Bellucci didn't say please. He commanded, demanded, took, but never pleaded. What do you want from me? I typed back. The response came immediately. I want to meet my son. I want to be his father. I want you both safe. Safe from what? From people who would use you against me. From poverty. From a world that would judge Marco for being born outside of marriage. From everything I can protect you from if you let me. I stared at those words, my heart twisting. There was truth in them. Marco deserved better than this cramped apartment. Better than me working double shifts just to afford decent food. Better than the constant worry about medical bills if he got sick, or school costs when he was older. But at what price? I need to think. I sent back. You have until noon tomorrow. Then I'm coming to you. I set down the phone and made myself breathe. 12 hours. 12 hours to decide how to introduce my son to his father. 12 hours before my carefully constructed world fell completely apart. When morning finally came, I called in sick to work. Angela sounded concerned, but I couldn't explain. Couldn't tell her that my son's Mafia boss father had discovered his existence and was about to crash into our lives like a wrecking ball. I dressed Marco in his nicest clothes, a small button-down shirt and little jeans. He chattered happily about his toys, about Mrs. Chen's cat, about the birds he could see from our window, completely unaware that today would split his life into before and after. "Mama, why you sad?" he asked suddenly, his green eyes, my eyes, searching my face with uncanny perception. "I'm not sad, baby. Just thinking." "About what?" "How to tell you that your father exists, that he's dangerous and powerful and wants to claim you as his own, that he could give you everything I can't, but might take away everything that matters." "About how much I love you," I said instead, pulling him into a tight hug. He squirmed after a moment, laughing, and went back to his blocks. At exactly noon, there was a knock at my door. My heart stopped. I looked through the peephole and saw not Ricardo, but Enzo, holding a large shopping bag and looking distinctly uncomfortable. I opened the door a crack. "He's not here?" Mr. Bellucci thought it might be easier if he waited downstairs. "Give you time to prepare." Enzo shifted the bag. "He sent these for Marco. Gifts. And this?" He handed me an envelope. "For you." Inside the envelope was a cashier's check. I looked at the amount and nearly dropped it. $50,000. "I can't accept this." "It's not negotiable, Miss Moretti. Back payment for 3 years of expenses raising his son. He said to tell you there's more available whenever you need it." The money felt like a chain. Accept it, and I was bound to Ricardo. Refuse it, and I was a fool putting pride before my son's welfare. "Tell him I'll think about it. He also wants you to know that a team has been assigned to watch your building. For security. You won't see them, but they're there." My hands clenched. "He's having me watched?" "He's having you protected. There's a difference." Enzo's expression softened slightly. "Miss Moretti, I've worked for Mr. Bellucci for 15 years. I've seen him with women before, but I've never seen him like this. The man didn't sleep last night. He's been making calls, setting up trusts, arranging security protocols. He's terrified something might happen to you or Marco before he can protect you properly. Or terrified I'll run again. Maybe both." Enzo glanced past me into the apartment. "Is that him? Marco?" I turned to see my son peeking around the corner, his thumb in his mouth, staring at this large stranger with wide eyes. "It's okay, baby," I said. "This is a friend of Mama's." Marco studied Enzo seriously, then asked in his small voice, "You got toys?" Enzo's stern face cracked into an unexpected smile. He knelt down, making himself less imposing, and held out the bag. "I do. Your friend sent them for you. Would you like to see?" Marco looked at me for permission. I nodded, and he scampered over, his shyness forgotten in the face of gifts. Enzo pulled out toys that must have cost hundreds of dollars. An intricate wooden train set, plush animals, books with gilded pages. "Mama, look!" Marco's face glowed with delight. "They're very nice," I managed, my throat tight. "What do you say?" "Thank you, mister." "You're welcome, young man." Enzo stood, and when he looked at me, there was something like sympathy in his eyes. "Mr. Bellucci is waiting at Cafe Vittoria. He thought neutral ground might be better. Less pressure on Marco, whenever you're ready. After Enzo left, I sat on the floor with Marco, watching him explore his new toys, each one carefully chosen for an almost 3-year-old boy. Someone had researched, had asked about age-appropriate gifts. Ricardo had done this, had thought about his son's interests, his developmental stage, had tried, in his way, to show care. Marco, I said carefully, how would you like to meet someone special today? Who? How did I explain this? A friend of Mama's, someone who wants to know you. Like Mrs. Chen? Sort of, but different. I took a breath. He's your papa, baby. Marco looked up from his train, confusion wrinkling his small brow. Papa? Yes. You know how some of your friends have papas? You have one too. He's been away. But he wants to meet you now. Would that be okay? I watched a dozen emotions cross my son's face. Confusion, curiosity, a hesitant hope that broke my heart. Will he like me? He asked in a small voice. Oh, baby. I pulled him close. He's going to love you so much. So much. Kay. He went back to his train, accepting this earth-shattering news with the adaptability only children possess. Can I bring my train? Of course you can. We walked to Cafe Vittoria, Marco clutching his new wooden train, chattering about everything and nothing. I tried to answer his questions, but my mind was elsewhere, preparing for what came next. The cafe was quieter than usual, the afternoon lull between lunch and dinner. Angela looked up as we entered, her eyes widening when she saw me. Laura, I thought you called in sick. Is he here? I interrupted. She didn't need to ask who. She just nodded toward the back corner, the same booth where Ricardo had sat yesterday. He was there, staring out the window, a untouched espresso before him. He wore dark jeans and a black sweater today, more casual but no less commanding. When he sensed our presence and turned, the look on his face stopped my breath. Longing, wonder, fear, love, all of it naked and raw in his eyes as he looked at Marco for the first time. My son, brave and curious, stared back. You my papa? He asked with devastating directness. Ricardo's throat worked. When he spoke, his voice was rougher than I'd ever heard it. Yes, I'm your papa. My name is Ricardo. I'm Marco. He held up his train proudly. See my train? It's beautiful, just like you. Ricardo looked at me, and I saw moisture in his eyes. Tears. Ricardo Bellucci, the man who commanded an empire without flinching, was crying. Can I? He gestured to the seat beside him. Can he sit with me? I nodded, and Marco, with the fearlessness of children, climbed into the booth next to this stranger who was his father. Ricardo went very still, as though afraid any movement might shatter the moment. You're big, Marco observed, looking up at him. You'll be big too when you grow up, strong like your papa. Mama says I'm strong already. I can carry all my blocks. Can you? That's very impressive. Ricardo's hand hovered near Marco's curls, then gently, so gently, touched them. You have beautiful hair, like mine when I was young. Mama says I look like you. Does she? Ricardo's eyes met mine across the table. Your mama is very smart. I watched them together, my son and his father, and felt something crack open in my chest. This was what I'd denied them both. 3 years of moments like this. 3 years of connection, of love, of family. Had I been wrong to keep them apart? Marco, Ricardo said softly. Would it be okay if your papa hugged you? Marco considered this seriously. Then he nodded and climbed into Ricardo's lap, as naturally as if he'd done it 1,000 times before. Ricardo's arms came around him carefully, as though holding something infinitely precious. He closed his eyes, breathing in the scent of his son's hair, and I saw his shoulders shake with silent emotion. "Mio filio," he whispered. "My son. My beautiful son." I turned away, tears streaming down my face, and walked to the counter where Angela stood watching with wide eyes. "That's his father?" she whispered. I nodded. "Holy Mary. Laura, he looks at that baby like he's the only thing that matters in the entire world." She was right, and that was what terrified me most. Because when Riccardo Bellucci decided something mattered to him, he would burn down the world before letting it go. I returned to find Marco showing Riccardo how his train worked, his small hands guiding his father's larger ones. Riccardo listened with complete attention, asking questions, praising Marco's explanations. "He's perfect," Riccardo said when he saw me approach. "Laura, he's absolutely perfect." "I know. Thank you." The words seemed torn from somewhere deep. "Thank you for keeping him safe, for raising him, for giving me this gift." "Don't," I said, my voice breaking. "Don't thank me when I kept him from you for 3 years. You were protecting him. I understand that now, and I promise you, Bella, I will never give you reason to protect him from me. I will be the father he deserves. I will." His phone rang. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. "Scusa," he said to Marco. "Papa needs to take this call. Will you stay with Mama for a minute?" Marco nodded, and Riccardo stepped away, his voice dropping to that dangerous tone I recognized. "This is not a good time. What do you mean she knows? How did she—" A pause. "Keep her away from them. I don't care what it takes. They are not to be touched. Yes, both of them. Then make her understand. I will deal with Valentina myself." He ended the call and returned to us, but the peace had shattered. His eyes held a coldness I remembered, the look of a man calculating threats and solutions. "We need to talk," he said to me quietly. "Somewhere private. Can Angela watch Marco for a few minutes?" Fear spiked through me. "What's wrong?" "Not here, please." Angela agreed to keep Marco entertained, and Riccardo led me to the cafe's small office in the back. Once inside, he closed the door and faced me. "My fiancé found out about Marco." The words hit like a punch. "How?" "Someone in my organization talks. They always do." His jaw clenched. "Valentina is not pleased. She sees Marco as a threat to our arrangement." "What kind of threat?" "The kind that proves I'm not as invested in our engagement as she thought. The kind that makes her look foolish in front of the other families. She's demanding I choose. Her or you and Marco." My heart pounded. "Then choose her. We don't need—" "I choose you." He cut me off, stepping closer. "I choose Marco. I choose family over business arrangement. But that means Valentina becomes a problem." "What kind of problem?" His expression went cold. "The kind that might try to hurt you to hurt me. The kind I need to handle before she makes a move I can't undo." Ice flooded my veins. "You're saying we're in danger because you chose us?" "You were always in danger once I found you. Being connected to me makes you a target. But yes, Valentina specifically is now a threat I need to neutralize." "Neutralize how?" He smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. "Let me worry about that. You just need to agree to increase security. Move into a safe house until this is resolved." "Absolutely not. I'm not uprooting Marco." "Laura." He caught my shoulders. "I have just discovered I have a son. I will not lose him because you're too stubborn to accept protection. You and Marco are moving today, either to one of my properties or to a hotel with my security team. Your choice, but you are choosing." This is insane. This is my world. And now it's Marco's world too. The sooner you accept that, the safer you'll both be. I wanted to argue, to fight, to refuse. But the fear in his eyes, the genuine terror beneath the cold command, stopped me. He was right. Marco was a Bellucci now, and in Ricardo's world, that came with a price. "How long?" I whispered. "A few days. A week at most. Just until I've made it clear to Valentina and anyone else that touching you or Marco means death." The casual way he spoke of death should have horrified me. Instead, I felt a twisted sense of relief. Whatever else Ricardo was, he would protect our son with everything he had. "Okay," I agreed, "but I have conditions." "Name them." "I don't want Marco to know he's in danger. I don't want him scared." "Agreed. And when this is over, we discuss custody arrangements properly. Lawyers, mediators, all of it. Legal and civilized." Something flickered in his eyes. "You still think you can keep me at arm's length?" "I think we need boundaries if we're going to co-parent successfully." "Co-parent." He said it like a foreign word. "Is that what we're doing?" "What else would we be doing?" His hand came up, cupping my face. "Building a family. The three of us. Not some cold arrangement with scheduled visitation, but a real family. That's what I want, Laura. Not just access to my son, but you. Both of you. Together." "Ricardo." "I know. It's too soon. Too fast. Too much." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "But I'm a patient man when it comes to things that matter. And you matter. You've always mattered." Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Enzo's voice came through. "Boss, we need to move. Valentina just left her apartment with 4 of her father's men. They're heading this direction." The tenderness vanished from Ricardo's face, replaced by cold calculation. "Get the car. We leave in 2 minutes." He turned to me. "Get Marco. Say nothing to alarm him. We're going on an adventure. Can you do that?" I nodded, my hands shaking. "Laura." He caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. "I will keep you both safe. I promise you that. Whatever it takes." I believed him, and that was the most terrifying thing of all. The safe house turned out to be another penthouse, this one in Tribeca, with views of the Hudson River and security that would make a military installation jealous. Ricardo's men swept the entire building before allowing us inside, checking every corner, every window, every possible entry point. Marco thought it was a grand adventure. He ran from room to room, exclaiming over the size, the views, the fact that his bedroom had its own bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. "Mama, look! I can see boats!" He pressed his nose against the floor-to-ceiling windows, his breath fogging the glass. "I see them, baby." I tried to match his enthusiasm, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Ricardo stood by the entrance, speaking in low tones with Enzo and 2 other men whose names I didn't know. His body language was tense, controlled violence waiting for direction. When he caught me watching, he excused himself and crossed to where I stood. "The building is secure. 4 men on rotation. Cameras on every entrance, panic buttons in each room. No one gets in without clearance." "You make it sound like a prison." "I make it sound like the safest place in New York for my family." He glanced at Marco, still entranced by the window. "Which it is." "How long do we have to stay here?" "As long as it takes to resolve the Valentina situation." "And how exactly are you resolving it?" His expression went blank. "That's not something you need to worry about. She's your fiancée, Ricardo. Or did you forget that detail?" "Business arrangement," he corrected. "One I'm terminating. Her father won't be pleased, but he'll accept appropriate compensation." "You're paying him off." "I'm ensuring there are no further complications. Her father gets what he wanted from the alliance, shipping access to certain ports. And in exchange, his daughter leaves you and Marco alone. Forever." The The casual way he restructured people's lives, moved pieces on a chessboard only he could see, sent chills through me. This was the man I'd fled from. The man who saw human beings as transactions to be managed. What if she doesn't accept the arrangement? His eyes went cold. Then she'll face consequences that make acceptance the only rational choice. Ricardo. Papa. Marco's voice interrupted. He'd started calling Ricardo that immediately, with the adaptability of children. Come see the boats with me. Ricardo's entire demeanor shifted. The cold crime boss vanished, replaced by a father who smiled and crossed to crouch beside his son. Which one do you like best? He asked, his voice gentle. The big red one. Can we go on a boat, Papa? Please? Soon. When it's safer, we'll go sailing. Would you like that? Yes. And Mama too. Of course, Mama too. We'll all go together. I watched them, this intimate scene of father and son, and felt my carefully constructed walls crumbling. 3 days. I'd known Ricardo was back in my life for 3 days, and already he'd woven himself into Marco's world so completely it terrified me. What would happen when this was over? When the threat passed and we had to figure out real life? How did you co-parent with a mafia boss? How did you set boundaries with a man who acknowledged none? That night, after I'd put Marco to bed in his new room, complete with toys that must have been delivered while we were at the cafe, I found Ricardo on the terrace. He stood at the railing, the city lights reflecting off the river below, a tumbler of whiskey in his hand. He's asleep, I said, wrapping my arms around myself against the October chill. He's a beautiful child. You've done well with him, Laura. Better than I could have imagined. I did what any mother would do. No. He turned to face me. You sacrificed everything to protect him. Your education, your dreams, your comfort. You worked yourself to exhaustion to give him what he needed. That's not what any mother would do. That's extraordinary. The compliment made my throat tight. I didn't have a choice. You always have choices. You chose him over yourself, over and over. I see that now. He paused. I also see that you chose to keep him from me because you saw me as a threat. And I need to understand why. Help me understand, Laura. What happened that night after you left? What did you learn about me that made you run? I leaned against the railing, staring out at the river. I Googled you. The morning after, when I got back to my apartment. I wanted to know more about the amazing man I'd met. And instead, I found everything. Everything? The investigations, the suspicions of racketeering, money laundering, the articles about your family's alleged connections to organized crime, the rumors about what happens to people who cross the Belluccis. I turned to face him. I found out that the tender, charming man who'd made me feel special was actually someone the FBI had been trying to build a case against for years. He absorbed this without flinching. And you were terrified. Wouldn't you be? I was 20 years old, Ricardo. My mother had just died. I was drowning in medical debt. And I'd just slept with a man who, according to half the internet, might have ordered murders. Might have, he repeated. Alleged, rumored, but no convictions, no proof. Because you're too good at covering your tracks. Or because I'm a legitimate businessman being unfairly targeted due to my family's past. His voice was calm, but I heard the steel beneath. You never asked me, Laura. You never gave me a chance to explain. Would you have told me the truth? Yes. The simple answer surprised me. If you'd asked directly whether my family had connections to organized crime, I would have said yes. My grandfather built this empire through means that weren't always legal. My father continued that tradition. And when I inherited everything at 25, I had 2 choices. Let it all collapse, or learn to navigate a world I never asked to be part of. You could have walked away. Could I? He moved closer, his eyes intense. When my father died, I inherited not just businesses, but obligations. Employees whose families depend on us. Alliances that keep the peace between various factions. A system that, yes, operates outside the law in some ways, but also provides protection and opportunity to people who'd otherwise have nothing. Walk away from that? Let it all burn? Let the violence that would follow consume innocent people? That wasn't an option, Laura. So you're a criminal with a conscience. Is that supposed to make me feel better? I'm a man trying to do the best he can in an impossible situation, just like you. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. We're not so different, Bella. We both make hard choices to protect the people we love. I've never ordered anyone killed. Haven't you? His voice went soft. When you denied Marco his father, denied me my son, wasn't that a kind of death? 3 years of moments I can never get back. First words I never heard. First steps I never saw. You killed that possibility, Laura. Made a hard choice you thought was right. So did I. Many times over. We just operate in different arenas. The comparison made me flinch. It's not the same. Isn't it? You saw me as a threat and eliminated me from your life. I see threats and eliminate them from my world. The methodology is different, but the instinct is identical. Protect what matters at any cost. I wanted to argue, to deny the parallel he was drawing. But there was uncomfortable truth in it. I had made a unilateral decision about Marco's life, about Ricardo's place in it. I'd played judge and jury without allowing any defense. I was scared, I whispered. I know. His hand cupped my face. And I understand why. My world is dangerous. Being connected to me makes you and Marco targets. You were right to be afraid. But you were wrong to think I wouldn't protect you both with everything I have. Wrong to think I'd let any harm come to my family. We're not your family. Not really. You're the mother of my child. That makes you family. Marco is my son, my blood, my heir. That makes him family. And in my world, family is everything. Family is worth killing for, worth dying for, worth burning down the entire city for if necessary. The intensity in his voice sent shivers through me. You can't just decide we're yours. I already did. 3 years ago, the night you spent in my bed. You became mine then, Laura. I just didn't know it yet. And now, seeing you with our son, seeing the life you've built, the strength you've shown. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. Now I'm never letting you go. I should have pulled away, should have reminded him of boundaries, of the difference between co-parenting and possession. But his nearness, his scent, the memory of his touch, it all conspired against my better judgment. This is insane, I breathed. Probably. His lips brushed my temple. But I've spent 3 years searching for you. 3 years wondering what I did wrong. 3 years unable to forget the woman who saw me as a man instead of a monster. You think I'm letting that go? You think I'm settling for scheduled visitation and polite co-parenting? What's the alternative? You, me, Marco, together, a real family. We barely know each other. Then we'll learn. We have time. I don't want your world, Ricardo. The danger, the violence, the constant looking over our shoulders. What if I could minimize that? What if I could transition the family businesses to mostly legitimate operations? I've been working on it for years, Laura. Getting out of the gray areas, establishing legal enterprises. It's slow, but it's happening. For Marco's sake, I'll accelerate that process. I'll build an empire he can inherit without shame. The offer was tempting, too tempting. You'd do that? I'd do anything for him, for you. His forehead pressed against mine. Let me in, Bella. Let me be part of this. Not as some distant father with custody weekends, but as your partner, your equal, your... The door to the terrace burst open. Enzo stood there, his face grave. "Boss, we have a problem. Valentina's not backing down. She just posted photos online. Photos of Laura's apartment building, time-stamped from this morning. She's sending a message." Ricardo's entire body went rigid. What kind of message? That she knows where Laura lived, that she knows about Marco, and that she's not going quietly. Son of a... Ricardo bit off the curse, glancing toward where Marco slept inside. When he looked back at Enzo, his expression was ice. Lock down her accounts. Cut her access to her father's resources. I want her isolated within the hour. Already started. But boss, her father is threatening retaliation if you don't honor the engagement. Then he's a fool. Ricardo's voice went deadly quiet. Make it clear to him that his daughter threatened my son. Make it clear what I do to people who threaten my family. And make it clear that if he wants to see the sunrise tomorrow, he'll control his daughter immediately. Enzo nodded and disappeared inside. Ricardo turned back to me, and I saw the mask firmly in place. The crime boss, the man who ordered consequences without flinching. "This is your world," I said quietly. "Threats and violence and... This is me protecting you." He gripped my shoulders. "Valentina made a mistake. She went after my family. Now she pays the price. That's how this works, Laura. That's how I keep you safe. By threatening her father? By making it clear that there are consequences for threatening what's mine. He's a businessman, Laura. He understands cost-benefit analysis. Once he realizes the cost of continuing this engagement far outweighs any benefit, he'll fall in line. And if he doesn't?" Ricardo's smile was cold. "Then he learns why people fear the Bellucci name, why they don't cross us, why they certainly don't threaten our children." I should have been horrified. Should have grabbed Marco and run. But instead, I felt something else. A dark comfort in knowing that Ricardo would go to any length to protect our son. That his power, his ruthlessness, his willingness to cross lines, all of it was now directed toward keeping Marco safe. Was I becoming complicit in his world, or just accepting the reality that my son's father was dangerous, and that danger could be useful when properly directed? "I need to check on Marco," I said, needing distance to process everything. "Laura." Ricardo caught my hand. "We're going to get through this, all of us, together. I promise you that." I nodded and went inside, but his words echoed in my mind. Together. Was that what we were becoming? A family forged not from love, but from necessity and shared biology and the magnetic pull that had doomed me 3 years ago? I stood in Marco's doorway, watching him sleep, his small chest rising and falling, his hand curled around that stuffed bear. So innocent. So unaware of the forces aligning around him. "I won't let anything hurt you," I whispered. "Even if that means accepting help from your father. Even if that means entering a world I swore I'd never be part of. Because in the end, Marco's safety mattered more than my principles, and Riccardo Bellucci, for all his danger, was the one person who could guarantee that safety. 3 days in the Tribeca penthouse became a week, then 10 days. The luxurious prison, as I'd come to think of it, became our new normal. Marco adapted with the resilience of childhood, treating the security guards as friendly uncles, the sprawling apartment as a fantastic playground. Ricardo visited every day, sometimes multiple times. He brought gifts, educational toys vetted by child development experts, books in both English and Italian, clothes in the perfect sizes. He spent hours on the floor with Marco, building elaborate train tracks, reading stories in his deep voice, teaching our son Italian words that Marco parroted back with delighted giggles. Watching them together never got easier. Every laugh, every hug, every papa, squealed in joy, reminded me of what I'd stolen from both of them by keeping them apart. "You're brooding again," Angela said. She'd been visiting daily, cleared by Ricardo's security team after extensive background checks. Now she sat beside me on the plush sofa, watching Ricardo and Marco construct a block tower. "I'm thinking. You're torturing yourself. I can see it." She sipped her coffee. "Laura, you made the best decision you could with the information you had. Stop punishing yourself." "He's so good with him, Angela. Natural. Like he was meant to be Marco's father." "He is Marco's father. Biology doesn't lie, honey. You know what I mean. He's attentive and patient and completely head over heels for both of you," Angela finished. "I've seen the way he looks at you when you're not watching. That man is gone, Laura. Totally gone." I watched Ricardo now, his expensive sweater already dusted with toy debris, his normally styled hair disheveled from Marco's small hands, his face alight with genuine joy. He looked younger like this, less burdened, more like the man I'd met 3 years ago, before I'd learned what he was. It doesn't matter how he feels. This situation is temporary. Once Valentina's dealt with, we'll figure out proper custody arrangements and You'll what? Go back to your cramped apartment and minimum wage job while your son's father lives in penthouses and commands an empire? Angela shook her head. That ship has sailed, honey. Marco knows his father now. He adores him. You really think you can just cut Ricardo out again? She was right, and I hated it. Marco had bonded with Ricardo in a way I'd never anticipated. My son, who'd been shy around strangers, had taken to his father immediately and completely. They had the same laugh, the same way of tilting their heads when confused, the same unconscious grace in movement. Marco was a Bellucci, and I couldn't undo that, even if I wanted to. My phone buzzed. A text from Ricardo. "Need to speak with you privately. Can Angela watch Marco for a few minutes?" I looked up to find him already watching me, his expression serious. My stomach tightened. "Angela, would you mind?" "Say no more. I've got Marco. You two go talk." She was already moving toward the block tower, her voice bright as she engaged my son. Ricardo led me to the master bedroom, closing the door behind us. The room I'd been sleeping in, the bed I'd been trying not to notice, was big enough for two. "What's wrong?" I asked. "The Valentina situation is resolved." Relief flooded through me. "She's backing down?" "She's gone. Left the country this morning. Her father withdrew his threats after I clarified the situation." His voice was carefully neutral. "You and Marco are safe now." "That's good. That's wonderful." So why did my stomach sink? "So we can go home, back to normal?" "About that." He moved to the window, his back to me. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to really think about your answer." "Ricardo, marry me." The words hit like a physical blow. I stared at his back, certain I'd misheard. "What?" He turned, and his face was serious, intense. "Marry me, Laura. Make this official. Make us a real family." "Are you insane? We barely know each other. We're not... This isn't... We have a son together. We're compatible. We're attracted to each other. Don't bother denying it. And I can give you and Marco everything. Security, opportunity, protection, a real future. Marriage is about more than compatibility and attraction. What about love? What about it?" He moved closer. "You loved your ex-boyfriend Derek, didn't you? How did that work out?" I flinched. How did he know about Derek? "I know everything about you, Bella. The abusive boyfriend you left 2 months before we met. The restraining order. The fear that made you change your routines, your routes, your life." His voice softened. "Love didn't protect you from him, but I will. I'll make sure no one ever hurts you again. This is crazy. People don't just get married because it's convenient. People in my world do it all the time. Strategic alliances, beneficial arrangements. Ours would just have the bonus of genuine attraction and shared love for our son. No, I backed away. No, I won't marry you just to make your life easier. What about to make Marco's life better? He pressed. As my wife, you'd have access to resources, protection, a voice in how he's raised. As my ex, you'd be fighting for custody, fighting for decision-making power, always on the outside looking in. The manipulation was textbook, and I recognized it. But that didn't make it less effective. You're threatening me. I'm offering you a choice. Be my partner, my equal, my wife, or be relegated to co-parent status, always needing my permission, my approval, my cooperation. That's not fair. No, he agreed. But it's reality. I have the power here, Laura. The money, the lawyers, the influence. I could fight you for custody and probably win. Or you could marry me, and we build something together. Share the power. Share everything. You don't love me, don't I? He caught my hand, pulling me closer. I've spent 3 years unable to forget you. 3 years searching. 3 years comparing every woman I met to the one who disappeared from my bed. You think that's not a form of love? That's obsession. Maybe. But in my world, the line between love and obsession is pretty thin. And I'd rather be obsessed with you than indifferent to you. His hand came up to cup my face, and I couldn't help leaning into the touch. Muscle memory from one perfect night, my body remembering what my mind tried to forget. 1 month, he murmured. Give me 1 month of living like this. You, me, Marco, playing house in this penthouse. If at the end of that month you still want to leave, I'll let you go. I'll set you up in your own place, provide generous support, agree to whatever custody arrangement you want. And if I say no to this trial period, then we do this the hard way. Lawyers and courts, and Marco caught in the middle. I don't want that, Laura, but I'll do it if I have to. I should have said no, should have called his bluff. But the thought of Marco in a custody battle, of lawyers questioning him, of our son torn between us, I couldn't do it. 1 month, I agreed, but separate bedrooms. And at the end, I decide. Really decide, not under duress. Agreed. His thumb traced my lower lip. But I'm warning you now, I play to win. And by the end of this month, you'll want to stay. The confidence in his voice should have annoyed me. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in my stomach. Because part of me, the part I tried to suppress, already wanted to stay. The next 3 weeks passed in a strange domestic haze. Ricardo worked from home most days, his office door open so he could hear Marco playing. When he had to go out, he'd return with gifts, flowers for me, toys for Marco, groceries from expensive markets because I'd mentioned craving a specific brand of pasta. We fell into routines. Breakfast together, Ricardo making espresso while I prepared Marco's meal. Afternoons in the park across the street, Ricardo carrying Marco on his shoulders while security trailed discreetly behind. Evenings reading stories, both of us on Marco's bed, our son nestled between us. It felt like a family, dangerously like a family. Mama, Marco said one night as I tucked him in. Is Papa staying forever? My heart clenched. Would you like that, baby? Yes, I love Papa, and Papa loves us, he told me. His small face was so hopeful. Can we all live together always? We'll see, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups need to figure things out. But you love Papa too, right? Like I love him? Did I? The question haunted me as I closed Marco's door and found Ricardo waiting in the hallway. He'd heard, obviously. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes burned with intensity, Do you? He asked quietly. Love me? I don't know. How can I know when all of this is built on fear and necessity and... He kissed me. Not gently, not tentatively, but with the same consuming passion I remembered from 3 years ago. His hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and I melted into him, despite every logical reason not to. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. That's how, he said roughly. That's how you know. Because chemistry like this doesn't lie, Laura. Attraction this strong doesn't just appear. It's rare and precious and worth building on. It's just physical. Is it? He pressed me back against the wall, his body bracketing mine. Then why does my chest tighten when I hear you laugh? Why do I find myself watching you with Marco, thinking about how beautiful you are as a mother? Why do I want to kill anyone who's ever hurt you, protect you from everything, give you the world? Because you're possessive. Because I'm in love with you. The admission was raw, unguarded. I was probably in love with you 3 years ago and too stupid to recognize it. But I recognize it now, Laura. What I feel for you isn't just attraction, or obsession, or possessiveness. It's love. Real, terrifying, all-consuming love. Tears pricked my eyes. You can't just decide you love me. I didn't decide anything. It just is. Like gravity. Like the fact that Marco is mine. Like the fact that you've been mine since the night we met, whether you admit it or not. This is insane. Probably. He kissed me again, softer this time. But I'm insane about you, Bella. And I hope, you might feel the same. Did I? Looking up into his dark eyes, feeling the warmth of his body, remembering 3 years of unconsciously comparing every man to him. Maybe I did. Maybe I'd been in love with Riccardo Bellucci all along, and fear had just disguised it as something else. The month isn't up yet, I whispered. No. But when it is, what will you say? I didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because the truth was terrifying. I was falling for him, hard. And when the month was up, I wasn't sure I'd have the strength to leave. The month was nearly over when everything exploded. I woke one morning to find Riccardo already gone, an unusual occurrence. A note on his pillow. Business emergency. Stay inside. Enzo is outside your door. Fear spiked through me. I checked on Marco, still sleeping peacefully, then found Enzo in the hallway, his expression grim. What's happening? Valentina's father. He's not as reconciled to the situation as we thought. Made some moves last night that require the boss's attention. What kind of moves? Enzo hesitated. The kind that involve your name coming up in conversations it shouldn't. Nothing immediate, but Mr. Bellucci is handling it. I spent the day on edge, jumping at every sound. Marco sensed my anxiety and grew clingy, asking repeatedly when Papa would be home. I had no answer. It was late afternoon when Riccardo finally returned. I heard him before I saw him, his voice sharp and commanding as he spoke with his men in the foyer. When he entered the living room, his face was drawn, exhausted. Papa! Marco launched himself across the room. Riccardo caught him automatically, lifting him up, but his eyes never left mine. We need to talk, he said quietly. My stomach dropped. Marco, why don't you go play in your room for a few minutes? But Papa just got home. I'll come see your new drawing in just a minute, Piccolino, Riccardo said gently. I promise. Once Marco was gone, Riccardo sank onto the sofa, running his hands through his hair. I'd never seen him look so defeated. What happened? Valentina's father went to the other families. Painted me as unstable, ruled by emotion rather than logic. Used you and Marco as proof that I'm distracted, weakened. He looked up at me. and I saw something like fear in his eyes. There's going to be a meeting, a formal gathering of all the major families. They want to discuss my leadership, my judgment. Because of me. Because of us. Because I chose my son over a strategic alliance. Because I put family over business. He reached out, pulling me down beside him. Laura, I need to ask you something, and I need you to really hear me. Okay. At this meeting, they're going to demand answers. They're going to want to know who you are, who Marco is, what our relationship means for the family, and I need to know what to tell them. My heart pounded. What do you want to tell them? The truth, that you're the mother of my son, that Marco is my heir, that you're both under my protection, now and always. He cupped my face. But I want to tell them more than that. I want to tell them you're my wife, that this family, this empire will pass to our son, that anyone who threatens you answers to me. Ricardo, I know the month isn't up. I know you haven't decided. But circumstances are forcing my hand, Laura. If I don't claim you publicly, if I don't make it clear that you're family, they'll see you as a weakness, as something they can use against me. And if you do claim me publicly, then you become untouchable, sacrosanct. But it also means you're all in, Bella. No more hiding, no more anonymity. You become Mrs. Ricardo Bellucci for the entire world to see. You and Marco both. The weight of it pressed down on me. When is this meeting? Tomorrow night. That's not enough time. I know, but it's what we have. He pulled me closer, his forehead resting against mine. I won't force you into this. If you say no, I'll find another way. I'll weather their judgment, deal with the fallout, but it will be harder, Laura. So much harder. I pulled back, needing to see his face clearly. Are you asking me to marry you? I'm asking you to be my partner, my equal, my family in every way that matters. The legal paperwork can come later if you need time. But tomorrow, I need to be able to say that you're mine and mean it. Really mean it. What about what I need? Tell me. Tell me what you need, and if it's in my power, it's yours. I need to know this is real, not just strategy or protection, or keeping me close to Marco. I need to know you actually want me, not just what I represent. He laughed, the sound rough. Laura, I've wanted you since the moment I saw you 3 years ago. I've searched for you obsessively, dreamed about you constantly. I've compared every woman to you and found them all lacking. And now, living with you, seeing you with our son, watching you be brave and stubborn and fierce. I don't just want you, I need you, like air, like water, like nothing else I've ever needed in my life. That's not love, it's both. Want and need and love all tangled together until I can't separate them. Maybe it's not the healthy, balanced love the poets write about. But it's real, Laura. It's mine. And if you'll let me, I'll spend the rest of my life proving it to you. I looked into his eyes. Those dark, intense eyes that had haunted me for 3 years, and made a decision. Okay. Tomorrow at your meeting, you tell them I'm yours, that Marco is your heir, that we're a family. I took a shaky breath. And then, when this is all settled, we figure out the rest. The marriage, the future, all of it. Together. His smile was brilliant, transforming his face. Together. I liked the sound of that. He kissed me then, deep and claiming, and I kissed him back with equal fervor. This was insane. This was reckless. This was probably the biggest mistake of my life. But it felt right. The next evening, Ricardo dressed in a suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary, all sharp lines and barely contained power. I wore a dress he'd had delivered. Elegant, expensive, appropriate for meeting Mafia dons. "You don't have to come," he said for the 10th time. "I can represent us both." "No. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it properly. They want to meet Marco's mother? Fine. Let them." Pride flickered in his eyes. My fierce lioness. They won't know what hit them. The meeting was held in a private room at an exclusive restaurant in Little Italy. As we entered, I felt the weight of dozens of eyes assessing me, judging me. Older men in expensive suits, their wives dripping with jewelry. Younger men who watched Ricardo with varying degrees of respect and wariness. This was his world, and I was stepping into it voluntarily. Ricardo kept me close, his hand at the small of my back as he navigated the room. He introduced me to everyone, his voice carrying pride and possession in equal measure. "This is Laura Moretti, the mother of my son. My family." The room quieted. An older man, Valentina's father, I realized, stood from the head table. "Ricardo, we need to discuss this situation." "By all means, Don Russo, let's discuss." Ricardo's voice was ice. "Let's discuss how you threatened my child, how your daughter posted photos of my son's home online, how you attempted to use your business relationships to undermine my position because I refused to marry into a family that endangers mine." Don Russo's face reddened. "Your son? You have no proof?" "I have DNA results, legal documentation, and 3 years of Laura raising my heir while I searched for her." Ricardo's voice carried through the room. "Marco Bellucci is my son. Laura is his mother. They are both under my protection, and anyone who threatens them threatens me directly. This woman is nobody," Valentina's father spat. "A waitress, an outsider. She has no place in our world. She has every place." Ricardo moved forward, bringing me with him. "She gave me an heir when I had none. She protected and raised him with nothing but her own strength and determination. She is more worthy of respect than half the people in this room who were simply born to the right families." "You risk everything for sentiment," another man said. "For one woman and a child?" "For my family." Ricardo's voice went quiet, deadly. "And let me be very clear about something. My grandfather built this empire from nothing. My father expanded it. I have consolidated it, legitimized it, made it stronger than ever. But I'm not doing it for abstract concepts like power or wealth. I'm doing it to build something my son can inherit with pride." He looked around the room. "Any of you who want to challenge my leadership over this, step forward now. Let's settle it the old way." Silence. No one moved. I thought not. Ricardo's smile was cold. "Here's how this will work. Laura and Marco are family, untouchable. Anyone who harms them in any way answers to me personally. Don Russo, your daughter is fortunate she left the country. If she returns, if she comes near my family again, there will be no warnings. Understand?" Don Russo looked like he wanted to argue, but several other men shook their heads at him. Finally, he nodded stiffly. "Good. Now let's eat. I believe we have business to discuss that doesn't involve my personal life." As the tension broke and people returned to their tables, Ricardo leaned down to whisper in my ear. "You were magnificent." Didn't flinch once. "I was terrified. You didn't show it. That's what matters in this world. How you appear, not how you feel." He pressed a kiss to my temple. "You're going to make an excellent Bellucci." Later that night, back at the penthouse after putting Marco to bed, I found Ricardo on the terrace again. His jacket was off, his tie loosened, and he looked more relaxed than I'd seen him in days. "It's really over?" I asked, joining him at the railing. "The immediate threat? Yes. Don Russo won't move against us. The other families accept Marco as my heir. We're safe." He turned to me. "Which means it's time to discuss the future." My heart raced. "Ricardo? Marry me. For real this time, not as strategy or protection. Marry me because you want to build a life together. Because you love me, even if you're not ready to admit it yet. I do love you, I said, surprising myself with the admission. I think I have since that first night, and I was just too scared to acknowledge it. His eyes blazed. Say that again. I love you. I love your strength and your dedication to Marco, and the way you've tried so hard to give me choices even when you desperately wanted to control everything. I love... He kissed me, lifting me off my feet, spinning me around. When he set me down, we were both laughing, breathless. Is that a yes? He asked. That's a yes. To marriage, to building a life together, to being a family. All of it. Thank God. He pulled me close, burying his face in my hair. I was prepared to spend the next year convincing you, but this is so much better. Just promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll keep transitioning the businesses, that Marco will inherit an empire he can be proud of, not one that requires violence and fear. I promise. I've already started. In 5 years, maybe 10, the Bellucci name will be associated with legitimate business, with philanthropy, with power that doesn't require breaking the law. For Marco, for you, for the family we're building. I believed him. Against all logic, despite everything I knew about his world, I believed that Riccardo Bellucci would move heaven and earth to give our son a better future. When? I asked. When what? When do you want to get married? His smile was slow and devastating. Tomorrow. Tonight. Right now. Whenever you'll have me. I laughed. How about in a few months? Give me time to plan something, to invite people, to do this right. Fine. But you're moving into my bedroom tonight. No more separate rooms, Laura. We're together now, in every way. Heat pooled low in my stomach at the promise in his voice. Okay. Okay? He raised an eyebrow. That's it? No argument? I'm tired of fighting this, Riccardo. Fighting you. Fighting what I feel. I just want to be happy. We all deserve that. Yes, he agreed, his hand cupping my face with infinite tenderness. We do, and I'm going to make sure you're happy, Bella. Every single day for the rest of our lives. 3 months later, I stood in an elegant chapel in upstate New York, wearing a dress that cost more than my car, watching Riccardo wait for me at the altar. Marco stood beside him in a tiny suit, our ring bearer, his face glowing with excitement. My family, my future, my choice. As I walked down the aisle, alone, because I needed no one to give me away, I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the fear, the running, the 3 years of hiding, the chance encounter at Cafe Vittoria that had changed everything. Riccardo's eyes met mine, and I saw everything I needed to know reflected in them. Love, devotion, promises kept, and promises to come. When I reached him, he took my hands in his, and I felt the rightness of it settle into my bones. Hi, I whispered. Hi, he whispered back, his voice rough with emotion. Ready to become a Bellucci? I've been a Bellucci since the night I met you. This just makes it official. His smile was brilliant. I love you, Laura Moretti, soon to be Bellucci. I love you too, I said, and meant it with every fiber of my being. The ceremony was beautiful, traditional, perfect. When the priest pronounced us husband and wife, Riccardo kissed me like he'd been waiting his entire life for this moment. Maybe he had. Maybe we both had. At the reception, surrounded by family, his enormous, complicated family and the small chosen family I'd built, I watched Riccardo dance with Marco, our son laughing as his father spun him around. They're beautiful together, Angela said, appearing at my elbow with champagne. You did good, honey. I got lucky. No, you got brave. You chose love over fear. That's not luck. That's courage. Maybe she was right. Maybe courage was just fear that had decided to take a chance. Later, as Ricardo and I said goodnight to our guests, his hand never left mine. Claiming me, yes, but also anchoring me, reminding me that I wasn't alone anymore, would never be alone again. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Bellucci?" he asked, his eyes dark with promise. Home, not the penthouse or his estate or any building. Home was wherever the three of us were together. "Ready," I agreed. And as we drove away, Marco asleep in his car seat between us, I realized something profound. I'd run into Ricardo Bellucci's orbit 3 years ago seeking escape from danger. I'd disappeared, thinking I was protecting myself and my unborn son from a world too dark to navigate. But fate had brought us back together. And this time, I wasn't running. This time, I was exactly where I belonged. With the man I loved, the father of my child, the partner I'd chosen freely, despite every obstacle. Ricardo reached across the seat, lacing his fingers with mine. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For giving me a second chance. For trusting me with your heart. For our son. For everything. Thank you for finding me. For never giving up. For proving that love can exist even in the darkest places." He brought my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. "I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me." "I already don't regret it," I said. "Not for a second." And I meant it. Against all odds, against all logic, against every fear that had driven me away 3 years ago. I'd found my way home. To Ricardo. To Marco. To family. To love. The past had come back for me. But instead of destroying me, it had given me everything I'd never dared to dream of. A future worth fighting for. A love worth keeping. A family worth protecting. And a man who'd promised to stand beside me through it all. Forever.